Well, good morning and welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder, and this is BRN AM for Tuesday, June 23rd, 2020. And our top stories today: the U.S. can get 90% clean electricity in just 15 years, and how technology is aiding archaeology and history. Joining me now to discuss this and more is Daniel Klein, Senior Technology and Consumer Products Reporter with The Motley Fool. Hey, Dan, welcome back to the program. Good to see you this morning.
Hey, Jeff, I should be doing this show from Cozumel, Mexico, but yet another trip has fallen victim to the coronavirus.
I know, I do see that, and I see that there's a little bit of dreary weather behind you. I hope you're able to get outside and exercise and do some things with your family that you like to do.
Yeah, it's been kind of a gray week, but there's been moments of sunshine. Hard to complain here in South Florida.
I know, you're going to have a hard time convincing those of us in the Northeast when it's, you have such beautiful weather. So Dan, I want to jump in, and we've got two great stories. The first one, that the U.S. has the ability to go to clean electricity, clean energy within the next 15 years. But I know you may have a little bit of a different take. I think it sounds very bullish, but implementation is often the hardest part of any project plan.
I have the ability in the next 3 years to have Arnold Schwarzenegger's physique from when he was 22. Technically, I have that ability. The reality is going to be something lesser than that. And I think the problem is right now, as a country, we're producing oil very cheaply. Oil is cheap all over the world, but we're actually producing more than we need. There was a point earlier this year where it cost negative $45 to get a barrel of oil, basically meaning we didn't have any place to put the oil. So your best investment was buying companies that stored oil. So that's not going to change anytime soon. As a world, we're moving away from the internal combustion engine. We're less reliant on oil, so the price is going to stay low. That's going to disincentivize companies from moving towards clean energy. It doesn't make that much sense. I'd like to put solar panels on our house in Orlando. Not allowed to do that because of the HOA. But even if I could, it would be of questionable value because my electricity bill there is really, really low.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you don't have the incentive, I think from a perspective of being cleaner, it makes a lot of sense. But sometimes the fact, and this is where the short-term vision often doesn't align, the individual short-term needs doesn't align with the long-term needs. So our need to have a lower payment for education, for electricity, doesn't always coincide with having a better and fruitful environment 30, 40, 50, 100 years from now.
Yeah, some of this will depend on, and fully without getting into politics, where the government stands. If there are incentives to use solar energy, to use wind power, look, currently we have an administration that doesn't like wind power for reasons that are inexplicable. But if the next one, every 2 years we get changes in who's in charge. So if you get a group that decides that this is a goal, then I think you're more likely to hit that 15-year target. I do think, we talked about earlier, people tend to buy cars based on the price of gas now. Gas here in West Palm Beach is well below $2. So if someone's buying a new car, they'll be like, it'd be great, a pickup truck or an SUV. If gas was $3, they'd be like, oh, that Nissan Sentra Dan drives, or actually I drive a Nissan Versa. My wife has a Sentra. That low mileage, high mileage vehicle, low gas cost, that's really attractive. I think we're going to, at some point, get a spike in cost that will get different companies. You also have businesses, and there's a lot of them. Starbucks is the one that comes to mind, but there's lots of them that have pledged to be net neutral on their energy use. And sometimes that's putting solar farms on their roofs. Sometimes it's buying interest in solar farms that are like in the desert or wind or whatever it is. So I do think this is going to happen. I just think 15 years, given the current economic climate and the sort of disincentive for capital projects right now, we might not see major unnecessary capital spending for 3 to 5 years based on, there's a definite pullback in the economy because of the pandemic, and that's going to slow down. I hate to call this unnecessary spending, but if you're already using oil, you don't need to find another way, to power your whatever.
Yeah, Dan, Tesla remains a very popular brand. My understanding is sales are, prior to the pandemic, were pretty solid. People like the models, they like the electricity. It's by all accounts a very decent car, although I mean I think there have been some servicing issues from time to time. What about a company like Tesla? What about BMW moving to a hybrid electric engine? These other companies, I mean, will that continue?
Tesla has incredible brand loyalty. I think it's fair to say I'm a Tesla bear. I don't. They are very vulnerable to Ford and GM moving fully into electric vehicles, selling a good one at half the price. I think that is, the $30,000 Tesla you can't buy for less than $42,000. That's a problem. When your entry-level price is over $40,000, there's a lot of people who can't buy that. When the used market is still in the 30s, and it's harder to get financing on a used car at that rate. So I think Tesla's a nice niche product. I'm not entirely sure it's a business. It's a brand name and a bit of a con game, in my opinion. That said, and a lot of fools really, really disagree with me. So to be clear, that's just my opinion.
Sure.
I will say that electric vehicles are here to stay. Hybrids and electrics within 3 to 5 years will be the norm. There's always going to be someone who wants to drive a loud Mustang and feel the gas engine or whatever it is. The vast majority of us, if prices were equal, would opt to not pay for gas. There's some hurdles. We don't have enough charging stations. It takes about half an hour to charge a Tesla at a rapid charge station. That's fine if I'm going out to go grocery shopping and manage to snag one of the 2 charging stations at the Whole Foods near me. Not so great if I'm driving from here to Orlando and need to stop at a rest stop and there's only 4 or 5 charging stations and I have to wait for it and my trip is delayed by an hour. I also live in a building with a garage. You know what my garage doesn't have? Plugs. So there's no way to charge in my garage, or else we probably would have bought an electric car for one of our vehicles, our short use vehicle. Thought about a Nissan Leaf, which only has about 100-mile range. Doesn't make sense if you can't charge it. There are a lot of problems, but the reality is it makes so much sense that 3 to 5 years might be optimistic, but this is going to happen.
Yeah, swinging back to investments, one of the things that is really popular is sustainability and ESG. So, there are companies that are heavily branding themselves as ESG friendly. That means they have, filters for governance, that things are environmental and socially sound. And these are becoming very popular. I think that the assets attributable to these funds have grown significantly, this year and last year. Even with your thoughts about electricity and going green from that perspective, do you still see this continuing as a trend? Because I think a lot of people have bet the wind farm on that.
I tend to be an ESG investor. I'm not going to buy a bad company because it has good governance and it's environmentally friendly, but I'm certainly going to lean towards companies that are behaving in a responsible way. And look, we've talked about this before. Right now, I own shares in WWE, and I highly question that because the company laid off people during a pandemic at a point where they're going to have trouble getting a job when its revenues have not declined. They make most of their money on television. They lose money producing live events. So they're actually saving money not having to tour, and they laid off a bunch of people. That made me question whether I want to be a shareholder. The fact that I keep saying that out loud means I can't sell my stocks because we're not allowed to talk about a stock we sell for 2 days before and 2 days after. Basically means I can sell on a Wednesday if I don't talk about it all week. It's really hard when you're doing media appearances and live programming to do that. So I haven't bought or sold a single stock during the pandemic because I keep ruining it. Every time I think of something, I say it out loud. But yeah, I do think the ESG trend is going to continue. Look, there's plenty of investors. I have a brilliant colleague named Jim Gillies, who is one of the most ethical men I know. And his attitude is, if a company can make me money, I'll invest in it. And then I'll use my profit to support causes I like. And that is a perfectly viable investment strategy. And then it gets really confusing. There's a Canadian payday lender he talks about a lot, Kuro. And while payday lending is generally not ethical, the company has an incredible reputation for how it operates and how it treats its employees. So it's like, what if you found out that Philip Morris was an awesome place to work and they treated everybody well, they had unlimited vacation and amazing paternity leave? It's never as simple, and maternity, we'll let mom have some time off too. It is never as simple as it seems.
Yeah.
There's always a way. Look, Starbucks is generally a very socially conscious company. And you saw last week that they had to reverse a decision they made. I won't go into the politics of it, but every company can make mistakes. It's how they handle those mistakes. It's how they come back from, this happened in our store, this happened in our business. How did we address it? I don't call one strike and you're out for anybody.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's a trend that I'm certainly watching. I know people in the retirement industry are watching it. Participants want these types of funds in their plans, so I think a lot more to come there. Dan, we're going to go to a quick break, and I think you're going to need your fedora and your bullwhip because we're going to be talking about technology and archaeology. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
The windows on our homes, they protect us and the ones we love, but they do much more. At Renewal by Andersen, making your home more comfortable is at the center of every window we make. It's why we custom build our windows in America and install them in as little as 1 day. It's why we build our frames with exclusive Fibrex composite material that's 2 times stronger than vinyl. It's why our glass helps keep your home warmer in winter, cooler in summer, and quieter all year long. It's why we stand behind every window with a 20-year limited warranty. Why not help lower your energy costs while giving your home and family the best? Call 1-800-835-6525 to schedule a free in-home consultation. Buy one, get one at 40% off with this special offer. Plus, get special financing with no money down, no monthly payments, and no interest for 1 full year. Renewal by Andersen, the better way to a better window. Call 1-800-835-6525 now.
Welcome back. We're talking to Dan Klein, Senior Technology and Consumer Products Reporter with The Motley Fool. Dan, thanks for sticking around this morning.
Thanks for having me. I will point out that going on an archaeological dig is very low on my list of things I would ever be willing to do. I prefer a less aggressive type of vacation.
Well, why did it have to be snakes, Dan? Snakes, I hate snakes. But let's be serious because we can be fun too. But technology has been used, ground penetrating radar has been used to unearth Roman cities that disappeared thousands of years ago, right? They were disappeared. And I think it's amazing, we're talking about the application of technology. It's amazing that you can now take ground penetrating radar and get information back and discern from that information and say, oh, that's something like a city or a town, and we need to excavate there.
This is pretty neat because previously archaeology had been a lot of guessing. How many digs are there that you think it's the spot and it turns out to not be the spot? That's very expensive. This allows you to see what's there and decide what the best approach to unearth it or to not unearth it, to learn what you need to learn without disrupting it. It's weird to think we're talking about breakthroughs in archaeology, but there might be all sorts of other uses for this. This might benefit mining. This might benefit, not that there's a lot of need to open new oil wells at the moment, but to find new oil wells, to find, rare metals can be a challenge. Some of the rare earth magnets are very, very hard to find. So this, I don't pretend to know the science here, but there could be a lot of interesting applications here. This is basically like 100 generations advanced of the old guy at the beach with the metal detector. Like, this lets you see what's underneath before you have to do any work.
And I think back to the Nazca lines, which are the lines in, is it South America, if I'm not mistaken, where they trying to theorize how these lines were created, but you can use a drone. They theorize, maybe one of the theories is that they had some type of balloon or something to elevate them at a high level so they could draw these designs of birds and different creatures that you would need in order to produce these lines. But think about drones. You could take a drone, and we talk about drones with Amazon and delivery, but you can also use drones for this purpose as well, because the more area you have to look down from, you actually can see where an asteroid was plunked down and hit the Earth, or you could actually see an ancient site that you need to excavate.
So you know that I don't believe that drones are ever going to be widespread used in delivery. That's not practical. Nobody wants a New York City sky full of drones. Doesn't mean a drone won't deliver to a rural house. My family home in New Hampshire, that's on a street with no mailbox. That would be a prime target for drone delivery. But the reality is drones are going to be used for corporate reasons like this. Right now, Walmart uses drones in its massive warehouses for inventory purposes. You could use them now for COVID-19 social distancing. You could use a drone to deliver internet temporarily to a concert site back when we can have concerts, or to a football stadium. They tend to use balloons, but you could actually use a drone. So when you go to a game with 80,000 people, you don't overwhelm the internet infrastructure there, because that doesn't need permanent infrastructure when it's only hosting 28, 30 things a year in most cases for a stadium, maybe a little more than that. So the use for drones is going to be things like this, being able to see the damage of an earthquake, being able to find survivors in a natural disaster, being able to check out weather patterns and other things like that. There's a lot of exciting uses for drones, but it's probably not going to be bringing me a burrito.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I'm just trying to envision what a sea of drones or the air space full of drones would be, either crashing into each other, crashing into people.
People throwing rocks at them, shooting laser dots at them to screw them up. The reality is we've shown that we can't handle this as a society in a public way. So look, you're going to see unmanned vehicles making deliveries. I think that last mile delivery in a city via like rolling mailboxes is going to absolutely be a thing. But flying drones will have their uses. Most of them will be commercial uses. They will assist in things like, hey, we found this discovery. We've done the underground radar. Let's get some footage on that site so we can do the site study and figure out, can we get our bulldozer there? Do we have to go in with shovels and toothbrushes, or can we get heavy machinery out there? There's a lot of uses for this that are really exciting. They're just generally not the ones that make the evening news.
Yeah, that's certainly true. They pick and choose what they cover. They don't have a lot of time, I guess. But what I think is really interesting is that this technology could be used to learn a lot about who we are as people, how we evolved. I was watching a documentary, and I grew up in the 70s, I think like yourself, and I remember the Voyager probes, and they are now they have the technology of what effectively is a key fob, right? I mean, it's a key fob, basically, with technology, obviously a lot bigger, but it's in interstellar space, and it's still sending back information. Now we have the technology to find more about ourselves here on planet Earth. And one example is to use the ground penetrating radar to see the mausoleum compound of the first emperor of China, which by all accounts, historical accounts, it's never been unearthed, but it's amazing. It has seas of mercury and represents the Chinese Empire at that time. I think that's an amazing opportunity. What technology to me brings is we have the opportunity to learn so much more about ourselves and actually evolve past where we are today.
And that's going to be one hell of a Lego set when they get those blueprints of the. Yeah, look, this is all really exciting, and I don't even think we know some of the uses for it. You know, the drones are much cheaper to fly than planes, so a lot of things that were impractical to do from the air are now going to be very practical to do. So, you know, I have a cousin who owns a site survey company, and they do a lot of physical work with those tripods, and they're triangulating. I'm not even sure what they're doing. They might be able to do a lot of that via drone and automate their work process. And look, you're going to see a lot more drones, both from think of the photography angle at a football game, your ability to fly a drone and get cool shots. You're seeing some of them, but they're on lines. They're not free floating. There's obviously some danger to a free floating drone in a stadium. You're going to see more of that as the rules change. Federal regulation has yet to catch up on some of this. It is a fairly difficult procedure to get approval to commercially use drones in areas where there are people. That's going to change as some of these less populated options come up. So I'm very excited about where all this is going.
Yeah, it's amazing when you think about it. I mean, we can learn so much. Dan Klein, always a pleasure chatting with you. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk to you again very soon.
We'll see you soon, Jeff.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a financial topic or someone of interest you think we should talk to? Drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the news in retirement markets, technology, personal finance, and more, check out today's edition of The Morning Pulse. So until tomorrow, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Attention! The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services has officially authorized new benefits that Medicare Advantage plans may include. To get the benefits you deserve, you can call the Medicare Coverage Helpline.
Hi, I'm Joe Namath. If you're on Medicare, this is important information. I called the Medicare Coverage Helpline and they instantly looked up my coverage. In this one simple call, they offered to enroll me in a plan that includes rides to medical appointments, private home aides, doctors and nurses' visits by telephone, and even home-delivered meals. The plan also includes dental, vision, hearing, and prescription drug coverage, all at no additional cost.
Don't delay. Call to see if the new benefits are available in your area.
Call the number on your screen now. It's free.
Call 1-800-757-1451. That's 1-800-757-1451.